Welcome back everyone, Oz here, and today I've got some r/TraumatizeThemBack for you all. It's been a little bit since we've done this one, but without further ado, let's just jump right into it. World-renowned hussy. Why won't you just have a drink? I discovered this sub today and started grinning maniacally. This is my favorite pastime. My sister died of alcoholism when I was 20 and in college. I'm 22 now. I never really liked alcohol very much in general. The intoxicated feeling makes me feel strange. Usually they don't taste good, they never do, and sometimes drinks can make my stomach upset. I still have a fruity something or other on a rare occasion. People are so goddamn pushy about drinking though. I'm sure you know what I mean if you don't drink. People would be like, you're in college, what do you mean you don't want to drink? You're 21! What do you mean you don't want to go bar hopping? Always trying to shove drinks down my throat. Always trying to get me to just try something. It's incredibly irritating. If someone offers me something I don't want, I'll answer with, I don't like drinking very much, at their first, why? If they push though, I love busting out the dead sister card. Oh come on, why don't you want to drink? Oh, well my sister died of alcoholism. I watched her pass away from internal bleeding and organ failure in the hospital. After that, drinking just makes me uncomfortable. Oh, the faces people make to that are spectacular. I'm aware this makes me an asshole, by the way. Nah, you're good. This is an effective way to deal with peer pressure. Not everyone likes to drink. I'll have a drink occasionally, but it's pretty damn rare if I'm gonna be honest with you, because they never taste good unless it's filled to the brim with sugar. And honestly, I really enjoy drinking in social situations, which is very rare if I'm gonna be honest. But if someone keeps pushing you after you say no to having a drink and they're continuing to try to get you to try something, your response is entirely valid. You said no originally, and they continued to push. Now they get to find out what no really means, and they have to deal with that. Bad Club 3. Sorry my mom's death is inconvenient. My mom recently passed away in a car accident. How recently? Well, I went out to the cemetery today and removed some additional flowers from her casket spray to dry for a shadow box I'm creating. And while the flowers are wilted, they're in great shape. As her only child and next of kin, I'm trying to balance my life along with all the freaking paperwork that comes along with someone dying unexpectedly. This situation involves the vehicle claim portion of her car insurance. The person handling the medical side has been wonderful, but the one handling the actual vehicle, not so much. For background, I've worked fast food, retail, and in a call center. I've been yelled at, spit on, threatened, etc. So it honestly takes a lot for me to get frustrated and lose my temper with a customer service rep because I've been there. In fact, the person at the insurance company that I reported the incident to had never done intake on a claim with a deceased person where she was speaking with the next of kin. She was awkward, but did a good job of remaining empathetic, but probably asked the same question a few too many times, lol. Yesterday, I called the vehicle claim person to alert them that the other vehicle's owner had hired a lawyer and I was going to be sending them a copy of the docs. During our conversation, the rep stated multiple times how frustrating it was that it would take several weeks to obtain prior medical records and that the title to the vehicle was in my deceased stepfather's name, and that they needed to talk with his next of kin. I finally snapped, explaining I had no idea where my stepsister was, and yes, it was incredibly inconvenient my mother didn't change the title to herself, but damn, I would love to ask my mother what she was thinking. But given that she plowed into a semi, her vehicle burst into flames and the body was in such a horrid shape they couldn't do any pathology, nor was I able to kiss my mom goodbye one last time since my friend who runs the funeral home absolutely refused to allow me to see her remains due to, the fire. I didn't think my mom was going to be able to explain her way of thinking, so sorry her tragic death is making your job more difficult. I hung up the phone, emailed the medical claim person about my frustration with the vehicle claim person. An hour later, I received a call from a supervisor who apologized for the lack of care I received and they would be handling my case. Trust me, I'm frustrated with my mom too, but not like we can do anything other than work with what we got. Well, first things first, I'm incredibly sorry for your loss. It's gotta be terrible. I'm lucky enough to still have both of my parents alive, so I've yet to deal with that level of grief, and I don't know how I'll personally handle it, but it's something that I worry about almost on the daily. Props to you for handling it with as much grace as you were able to until, well, eventually and reasonably snapping. I mean, I don't think I could handle it with that much grace. Any kind of resistance I would receive when trying to arrange my parents', well, estate preparations, I would say. I'd probably just snap in that moment. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I understand there's definitely gonna be a lot of red tape attached to that, but at the same time, God. How many lines can you realistically cross in a situation like this before you're at risk for losing your job? I definitely feel like with how complicated the matter is, with the stepfather being involved, the mother being the primary person who owned the vehicle, took care of it, took it for maintenance, probably made payments on it, I do wonder if it would be reasonable to assess the vehicle was in sole possession of the mother and therefore her property, with her husband being deceased and the title not being transferred over. I don't know. This does seem like a very complicated situation, and I'd be curious to anyone who's more familiar with this, what the realistic outcome would be and what the realistic requests you could make would be. Mesito. Supply teacher is homophobic during class, so the class triggers her. Petty revenge. This happened around 5 or 6 years ago when I was around 13, so some details are a bit fuzzy. I was in class, can't remember what class it was, and our regular teacher was ill, so we had a supply teacher. A substitute would be my guess for those of us who are Americans. There was a group of about 5 of us sitting together that were LGBT+. One of them had a pride flag drawn on her hand. The supply teacher saw this and confronted her. The conversation went as followed. Supply. What's that on your hand? A pride flag. You shouldn't be drawing that on your hand. I'm Muslim, and being gay is against my religion. And I'm not religious. Your beliefs don't affect me. At this point, the supply went on a tirade of homophobia and said things like, why are kids these days so Islamophobic? Even though our regular teacher, who was fine with LGBT+, was also Muslim. At some point, another member of the group started drawing the pride flag on his hand, just to see if he could trigger the supply even more. The rest of the group caught on, and we all started drawing various pride flags on our hands and arms. The supply caught us, and once again started her tirade of homophobia and how disrespectful we were to Muslims. She even said that drawing pride flags on ourselves in the presence of a Muslim was a religious hate crime. She didn't like it when I said, by your logic, wearing religious clothing is a gay hate crime since many religions are anti-LGBT+. She responded saying, my hijab is just how I express myself. She didn't know what to say when someone else said, and drawing pride flags is how they express themselves. This confrontation let the rest of the class in on our little scheme, and they too started to draw pride flags on their hands and arms. Even the homophobic kids were doing it. They weren't being supportive, they just liked pissing off teachers. One kid even told the supply, doesn't every religion say don't be a dick? How are you gonna preach about your beliefs and you can't even follow a simple rule like that? After the class, a bunch of us went to complain about the supply to our head of year. I don't know what happened to her, but we had a different supply for the rest of the week. I like to think that our class collaboration has dissuaded her from going on other homophobic tirades. Edit, please don't use this post to spread hate about Muslims and other religious people. This supply teacher does not represent all Muslims. As I said earlier in the post, my regular teacher was also Muslim, and she had no issue with LGBT. The majority of religious people keep to themselves and don't force their perspectives onto others. There's just a vocal few that make religious people seem bad. I appreciate the disclaimer, and I'm going to state the usual that I don't care what religion or sexual orientation or the hell you follow or fall into. I will bat for you as long as you bat for me. That's all I ask. If we can agree on that, then we're chill. There are a few exceptions, but those ones are pretty obvious, like files and Nazis. But that's besides the point. This actually did remind me of my senior year in high school where we had a new electronics teacher who was in the building. Granted, I never really interacted with him besides the fact that I was able to fool him into allowing me to take home very expensive equipment that his school would have never greenlit ever. It's also because of that I was able to modify my first car's ECU. So, thanks. But that aside, this teacher was extremely homophobic. And to put it in perspective, in my graduating class of 30 people, I'm not kidding, I would say that half of us were some form of LGBTQ+, in some way or another. To put it in perspective, when a straight couple kissed, he was fine with that. But a gay couple showed any kind of affection of kissing or holding hands, they were sent to the counselor's office or principal's office. He graded LGBTQ people on a very aggressive curve, while the people who were outwardly straight did not receive that aggressive curve. I know kids that failed his class because they were just simply gay. And by all means, these kids weren't slackers in school. They competed in a little thing called, if you're familiar with this, Skills USA, and won, in some categories, nationals. They were extremely talented. And despite this, they miraculously failed. Granted, a failing grade in my school was anything below a 70. However, when the school's pride and joy national championships of Skills USA end up getting a spotlight on them because they failed a class, a lot of questions get asked, and especially when known slackers and delinquents manage to pass while those who were exceptional students and 4.0 students previously suddenly failed, a lot of questions got raised. And when it was found out about his history of homophobia, he wasn't an instructor the next year. Xandar337. Got called fat at grandma's funeral. Matched energy. I, 37 male, flew home for grandma's funeral this past weekend. She and I were very close. I have PTSD and it affects my memory, so a lot of the people I met at her funeral I had already met and forgotten about. My dad has a ton of cousins, and one of them came up to meet me at the front of the chapel. I've met him before, but it's been many years and I really don't remember him. We shook hands and traded names, and he said, "The last time we met, you were much slimmer." Before I could even think about what to say, my mouth opened and I loudly blurted out, "Oh man, you wouldn't have to tell me I'm fat. I got a mirror and I have to look at his big old belly every single day." I rubbed my belly and poked it out to make it look bigger, like I was pregnant. He immediately ran off and didn't come back. I told my immediate family of the story and they laughed and said he was an asshole pretty much all the time. So he had it coming. I feel like Grandma would have been proud that I gave him a taste of his own medicine. Personally, I think self-deprecating humor works the best when it's in response to something and not just out of nowhere, which I'm guilty of this. I use self-deprecating humor all the time, but I feel like it has the best effect when you're using it to shut someone down. See, I got so used to using self-deprecating humor as kind of like a defense mechanism in middle school and high school that it got to a point where I would like preemptively insult myself to prevent anything from being thrown my way. And I feel like that's how a lot of people use self-deprecating humor, or I've gotten into the habit of using self-deprecating humor. But if I could throw out a suggestion, self-deprecating humor is out. Only if it's in self-defense, then it's fine. But overly confident humor is 100% in. Getting into a fight with a Ford F-150? Nah, I'd win. You versus a horse with a gun? I could probably take him if I had some prep time. And as long as it's in a KFC parking lot. But like, you can't use this in a cocky matter, it has to come off as clearly joking. Self-deprecating when you're insulted, cocky in general. Avoid self-deprecating out of nowhere. It can definitely make people a little uncomfortable. I don't know, but I'd love to get some audience input on this general concept. Posted by a deleted account. Nosy teenagers after closing. Petty revenge. So I used to work as a cashier when I was a teenager at a little mom and pop shop that was close to my house. We closed at 7 in the evening, but everyone always conveniently needs something at 6:55. Anyway, one night when I was working the closing shift, a few people came in and out near closing to get a few things, which I was fine with since they knew what they needed and where it was. But there was this group of 4 teenagers, 17 to 18, who were moseying around the shop after 7, and since only the assistant manager was there besides me and some packagers in the back of the store, neither of us had the authority to kick them out without getting in trouble. Eventually, they came over to my register with about 20 items, and I scanned and bagged them as quickly as possible because I'm super hungry, want to go home, and still had to count my drawer. They kept commenting on my style and hair choice. I was wearing my work shirt with a comfy orange and black jacket, and my bangs were a little oily since I hadn't washed my hair in a few days, and my customer service attitude was quickly depleting. Eventually, one of them says in a snarky tone, "Wow, you're scanning everything so fast." And with no fucks left to give, I responded in the most deadpan tone, "I want to kill myself." Needless to say, they shut up really quickly and left the store in such a hurry. I'm not actually depressed or suicidal, nor do I know why I said what I did, but I had the assistant manager laughing for about 10 minutes. Did you go through high school watching Filthy Frank or iDubbbz? Because you probably just unlocked a core response right there that was just waiting for the perfect opportunity to be said. If not, then I have no idea. Hell, sometimes I occasionally slip up and those comments come out occasionally. I'll be streaming Minecraft and the mildest inconvenience happens and I'm just like, I want to hang myself. It's not good. Trust me, I know, but it's not. The 2010s were a different time for humor. Dramatic T. It's supposed to be dramatic, but it's spelled like dramatic. Doesn't matter. Some old ladies tried to lecture me about my tattoos, so I showed them my mother's and my husband's tattoos. Passive-aggressively murdered. My husband, my own mother, and I decided to visit my husband's family. They live in a small, remote European village. He would always tell me the villagers, especially old women, from his hometown are overly religious and nosy. I thought it would be okay since we'll be there for only a couple of hours and we don't plan on doing anything scandalous anyway. Fast forward to the visiting time. My mother-in-law invited a couple of her friends after we arrived, since they were all curious about her new bride. And oh my god, those ladies were insufferable. They stared at me at every opportunity, judging my dyed hair and my ear piercing with their grimaces. I ignored their stares. We were going to be here for a few hours and I thought it wasn't worth making a scene over a few women I might never see again in my life. But one of them saw my arm tattoo and said, "You shouldn't doodle on your body." Then they all started commenting about how I should be ashamed of myself for harming the body that God gave me and how unlucky of my mother-in-law for such a person to marry her son. Then I called my own mother and told her calmly that this woman was interested in my tattoo. What they didn't know was that my mother had the same tattoo. My mother proudly showed them her own tattoo and told them that the tattoo represented my late father and how much it meant to her that I got the same tattoo as her. Then I playfully asked my mother to show them her other tattoos, and she pulled up her sweater to reveal her other arm, covered in tattoos. Their faces were priceless. Then my husband joined us, and to add fuel to the fire, I asked him to show them his tattoo as well. When we got home, my mother asked me why I was behaving like that about the tattoos. When I told her what happened, she said, "If you had told me earlier, we would have made them believe your grandmother's birthmark was a tattoo too." Tattoos are probably something that I'll never get in my life because I just don't have an interest. But I do like them for the concept of the body art that they are. I think it's cool, man. You should be able to do whatever you want to your body that you want. Just understand that there could be consequences. I'm looking at the guy who made his ears be devil ears and pierced his tongue and cut it down the middle and dyed the whites of his eyes black and wonders why he can't get a job. But that is 100% his choice to make. I think that some body modification trends are pretty goofy, but at the same time, I do goofy things too. And it doesn't affect me, so why should I care what makes you happy? Not to mention the whole argument of defiling the body that God gave you does bring up a lot of questions when it comes to like LASIK eye surgery and just other general quality of life surgeries. Like if you replace your knee or your hip or even get an organ transplant, does that count? Because you're still like defiling the original blueprint that was made for you by your creator. I don't know. That kind of stuff doesn't quite click in my head for me because at the end of the day, when the body decomposes, all that's going to remain is just nothing but a skeleton. And then the hip replacement and knee replacement will be very obvious. Hygh. My mom thought she could train me to like cilantro. I proved her wrong. Malicious compliance. So when I was small, my mom had this weird obsession of, if you eat something enough, you'll like it eventually, and didn't believe me when I would gag on merely the smell of cilantro. Thought I was just acting. She would even say that she didn't like it when she was small, and the taste grew on her when she ate it enough. I remembered coming home from school and smelling the cilantro before entering the door, and know that I would be forced to sit through a cilantro hot pot night. One day, I don't know what came into her mind, and she decided to make what she called cilantro soup. The ingredients are as follow: water, cilantro, salt. That's all. I imagine this would sound awful even for someone who likes cilantro. She put a whole bowl of it in front of the TV and asked me to drink it, adding a bunch of health information she read about cilantro, trying to persuade me while I'm gagging to the smell of it. At last, she gave up and just ordered me to drink it. I take a sip and dry gag vigorously and visibly. My stomach is literally cramping, and I'm 0% acting. I told her I'm about to throw up and I cannot finish the soup. She told me to stop acting and just pinch my nose and down the whole thing if I didn't like it. I did so. I pinch my nose and take the whole bowl like a shot. Seconds after swallowing, I breathe in and let out a sigh of relief. And the strong smell of cilantro was brought up to my nose with a sigh. My stomach cramped immediately and I threw up all over the TV, and we both stood there, silently looking at the vomit-painting masterpiece for seconds. She never asked me to eat anything with cilantro that day off, and Will warned me about having cilantro in certain dishes. She'll even ask me if I could go to my room when her church friends want to come over for cilantro hot pot, and will cook separate meals for me for days like that. To this day, I still hate cilantro, but my body reacts less vigorously now, and I can swallow with a straight face if I accidentally eat some. Wow, he's blew up, thanks guys. I think rather than copy and paste similar answers, it would be better just to reply here. So, 1. Did your mom drink the soup? Yes, she had her bowl finished on the table when I have to drink mine. She's generally a good cook, but would go rather unhinged when she's trying to cook something for the purpose of health. I remember trying leek soup to cure a bad cold, and yeah, you guessed it right. The ingredients are leek, water, and salt. 2. Cilantro gene-related info. I sent it to her, but sadly she doesn't believe in science, lol. I'm not sure if I tasted as soap or just stinky bugs, but it surely doesn't smell floral to me, so I guess I have the gene? And 3. r/cilantro. I didn't know of this sub. LOL, LOL, LOL. I joined a parody Facebook group for promoting illegalizing cilantro, though. So, I unfortunately have the cilantro gene, and it's one of those things in like a culinary experience that I am very envious of because everyone seems to love it, but I have tried so many times, but I can't. I just can't. Like, I can still eat it and not gag, but whenever it's in a meal, I just get it just overwhelms whatever I eat as just like a weird, soapy taste. But it's not like a soap taste either. Like, it tastes floral. It tastes like almost a spice, like almost like a bastardized mint. It's so close to having like just a lot of potential, but there's just this nasty, soapy overtone to it that just seems to just overpower anything that it's in. And it's sad. I wish I didn't have that because I would love to be able to eat food and experience why other people love cilantro so much. But I also don't have a violent reaction to it. If I taste it in a dish, I'll still eat the dish. Noodle and squish. You want to know why I'm on light duties? Let me tell you in graphic detail. This one's marked as malicious compliance. Disclaimer: this story is about a medical procedure. First, finding the sub has made my dark little soul giddy. Second, this happened when I was in the military. I'll do my best to not use acronyms. Back in the summer of 2002, when I was a young corporal, I went to do a 4-month task for the leadership school. A pretty physical task with lots of field time. Just prior to going, I needed to have surgery to have an ovarian cyst removed. Not a huge deal. Day surgery. And laparoscopic, relatively non-invasive. But it is abdominal surgery, and I wouldn't be 100% for a few weeks. I'd worked for the same boss the summer before, and he was cool with me being 1, a few days late for the task start, and 2, taking advantage of my amazing logistic skills to help plan for the multiple support needs of multiple courses. With the background out of the way, let's get to the traumatizing. 2 days post-surgery, I report for duty with Bossman, and then head immediately to medical to get light duty sorted out. Done and done. I head into work, give the boss my restrictions, and get caught up with some of the guys I'd worked with the summer before. Obviously, they were curious as to why I was late to report, but we're cool with my "I had surgery 2 days ago" explanation. All but one. Enter Corporal Dump. Now, medical information doesn't need to be shared, obviously, just restrictions, and no one, other than the medical personnel, is even allowed to ask why restrictions are needed. Corporal Dump either doesn't know this or doesn't care, and this is the first time he's ever met yours truly. He's b***ing that "I just got here and I'm on chit" medical restrictions already, and it's just bull. The reason I'm getting special treatment is because I'm a girl. Oh, you did not. My sergeant is giving me the "do you want to handle this or should I" look with an inquisitive head tilt. I sweetly ask Corporal Dump if he really wants to know why I'm on light duties. He replies in the affirmative or sarcastic, "Yeah, I could do," and I proceed to tell him. Well, first I had 3 small incisions, one in my belly button, one on the side of my abdomen, and one halfway between my belly button and mons. At this point, Corporal Dump is no longer curious and likely confused to what a mons is. But I insist he have all the details, so that he can be assured that my medical limitations are warranted. Once the incisions were made, they then inserted a camera in one, a suction tool in another, and a laser in the other. He's now very pale and doing everything but sticking his fingers in his ears. Then, with the laser, they chopped up the grapefruit-sized cyst in my left ovary, sucked it out, and then stitched me up. That's why I'm on light duties. With the mumbled, slightly nauseated "sorry," Corporal Dump made a hasty retreat and spent the next 4 months avoiding me whenever possible. Perhaps we applied the don't ask, don't tell rule to the wrong category of individual. Sounds like though it might already be in place and this was just described to get him to shut the hell up and teach him a bit of a lesson, which is, yeah, the right thing to do. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget this whole thing is basically brought to you by GamerSupps. If you like caffeine, then I can't recommend GamerSupps enough. Use code OZ at checkout to support the channel. And I do actually use this product. It's replaced all other sources of caffeine for me because I feel good. It doesn't have any of that extra stuff that a pre-workout blend might have. It's with a couple of the extra things to make it so you don't crash as hard. It's good. I like it. Personally, if you really want a good flavor, try the Soda Pressing Pear or even the Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are my personal favorites right now.